The attic and the lantern, the first frost of autumn, always came without warning in Windmere. One night the air would carry the last warmth of summer, and by morning the cobblestones would glitter with a delicate sheen of ice, making boots slip and horses toss their heads irritably. On such a morning, Elara Whitcomb climbed the narrow attic stairs of her grandmother's house, her breath misting in the cold. The attic was a treasure chest of the past. Brass-bound trunks, shelves groaning under the weight of books and faded quilts smelling faintly of lavender. Dust motes drifted lazily in the thin beams of light coming through the round window. She was searching for ribbons. Her father wanted to tie fresh bread bundles for the festival, but her gaze caught on something at the far end. Behind a stack of wicker baskets sat a lantern. It was bronze-framed, its glass etched with curling wave patterns. The handle was worn smooth as though carried for years. No wick, no oil, yet a faint glow shimmered inside, like moonlight caught in glass. When Elara touched it, the carvings seemed almost alive. She shivered. Elara. Her grandmother's voice floated up the stairs. "Yes, grandmother. Leave that be," the old woman said as she appeared, her sharp eyes narrowing. "That is no ordinary lantern. What's it for?" Her grandmother studied it for a long moment. "Every year before the harvest, Windmere sends lanterns to sea. You know this. To carry wishes to the silent stars," Elara replied. "That's what most believe," her grandmother said softly. "But one lantern each year isn't sent to the sky, it's sent to find something, or someone." She set it back down and walked away without further explanation. Elara's curiosity burned. The shimmer inside the lantern seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Chapter 2. The festival's Eve Windmere was stitched together by sea, stone and stories. Cliffs rose on one side, the ocean on the other, with whitewashed houses huddled between. In autumn, the sea could be glass one day and roaring the next. The Lantern Festival was the town's most cherished tradition. Stalls filled the streets with spiced cider, fish pies, candied chestnuts. Children carried paper lanterns shaped like stars and boats. Musicians played fiddles, and elders told stories of the silent stars who listened to wishes carried each year. Elara worked in her father's bakery, kneading dough, shaping festival loaves into crescent moons. But her thoughts kept returning to the attic lantern. That night, when the town settled, she slipped away. The moon was a thin crescent. In the attic, she lifted the lantern and whispered, "Oh, why do you glow?" The glass clouded over. A soft voice said, "The path opens only for those who carry the light." The air shimmered, the attic tilted. In the blink of an eye, she was no longer among dust and beams, but standing in a moonlit forest. Chapter 3. The Forest of Lanterns. The trees were tall pines, their needles whispering in a wind she could not feel. Between their trunks, hundreds of lanterns floated, each glowing with golden light, casting pools of warmth on the mossy ground. One lantern detached from the others and drifted toward her, bobbing as if in greeting. It moved slowly down a narrow path, pausing every few steps. Elara hesitated, then followed. Her boots sank softly into moss. The air smelled faintly of salt, though the sea was nowhere in sight. The deeper they went, the darker the woods became. The floating lantern lit her way, and shadows slipped away from its glow as if unwilling to be near it. She passed a fallen log carved with spirals like those on her lantern, and stones stacked into strange shapes, markers left by unseen hands. At last, the path opened into a clearing dominated by a vast oak tree. Chapter 4. The Well of Starlight. Beneath the oak's roots lay a stone well. But instead of water, it shimmered with liquid light, pale and silver, as if someone had poured the night sky into it. Stars seemed to drift within, slowly swirling in the depths. The guiding lantern hovered above it, and the voice spoke again. "Windmere is forgetting. The tide is turning. Will you carry the light back?" Elara's heart thudded. She didn't understand, but the word yes formed on her lips before she could think. She knelt and reached into the well. The light was warm, flowing around her fingers like water. It surged into her lantern, filling it until it shone like dawn breaking over the horizon. The forest began to fade. Chapter 5. The return. She was back in the attic, the boards creaking under her feet. Outside, drums beat in the streets. The festival had begun. She hurried out, clutching the glowing lantern. Down at the shore, the townsfolk were already sending paper lanterns into the dark sky. Their lights rose gently, carried by the wind. Elara stepped forward and lifted hers high. It didn't rise. It released a ripple of light across the waves, spreading like sunlight underwater. The sea seemed to breathe. No one else seemed to notice, but she felt it, a deep hum in the earth. the ocean and her own bones. Chapter 6. The Forgotten History. Later that night, Elara sat with her grandmother by the fire. The old woman studied her face and said quietly, "The light found you then." "What is it?" Elara asked. Her grandmother stirred the embers. "The festival began long before Windmere was a town. The sea gives us life, fish in our nets, storms turned away, but the bond must be renewed each year. One lantern carries not a wish, but a promise, to keep the tide and the people bound together. If the promise is broken, the sea will turn its back." Elara understood now why the voice had said Windmere was forgetting. To the townsfolk, the festival was only pretty lights. The meaning had slipped away like a receding tide. Chapter 7. The storm 2 days later, the weather changed. Dark clouds rolled over the horizon, the wind howled, and the sea rose against the cliffs. The fishermen brought their boats in, shouting to one another over the roar. That night, the waves pounded so hard the stones trembled. Elara lay awake, the lantern glowing faintly beside her. She knew what she had to do. Pulling on her cloak, she went to the shore. The storm nearly tore the breath from her lungs. She lifted the lantern, its light streaming across the water like a beacon. For a heartbeat, the sea stilled. Then the waves calmed, the wind eased, and the clouds thinned, letting moonlight spill over the harbour. Chapter 8. The Keeper of the Light. The next morning, the sea was calm, the nets full, and the sky clear. People called it a lucky turn, but Elara knew better. Her grandmother pressed the lantern into her hands. "It is yours now. Every generation, one becomes keeper of the light. This year it is you." From then on, Elara carried the weight of the promise. She tended the lantern, learned the old rites, and when the next lantern festival came, she would be the one to carry the true light to the sea again. Windmere would remember, because she would not let it forget.